Hazel, the game engine that I've been working on for the last 7 years or so, is going to be free. And this is the roadmap of how we get there. So for those of you who don't know, if you currently want access to Hazel, you have to subscribe on Patreon for $10 per month. And once you've done that, you just go to git.hazelengine.com, you connect your GitHub and Patreon accounts there, and you'll get access to this private repository. It's part of Studio Cherno. There's actually a few other ones that you'll get access to as well, but this is like the most important one, Hazel. This is the full Hazel engine, and it's not just like some release that we do for supporters. It's the Hazel engine development repository. So the whole team, all the work I'm doing, all of these like different branches, all the commits going in, you know, features that are obviously in progress, work that just gets done as part of development, is all pushed to that repository. A question that I get every now and then is, why charge money for Hazel? Who would want to pay money for Hazel if they can just use something like Unity and Unreal Engine, especially the latter, more or less for free? Like, am I really trying to compete with Unity or Unreal? And in fact, on that topic, what about Godot? That is completely free. Why does it cost money to get access to Hazel? The simple answer is that's just how we fund development of the project. We've used that money in the past to have staff members who worked on Hazel more or less full time, like Tim and Peter. And it also allows me to dedicate more time to working on Hazel than I otherwise would have. Hazel would probably still exist if there was zero money going into it, just because, well, I love making game engines and it would just be like a passion project, but this lets us take it a little bit more seriously. Godot also has a Patreon, though it's not required to actually become a patron to get access to it. And then Unreal Engine and Unity are obviously commercial products that make money by charging developers who make money. Either business model is probably fine. Although at Unity and Unreal Engine scale, they would probably want to make money from actual customers rather than just donations. By the way, this whole like situation with Hazel and a lot of the information that I'm going to discuss here today is actually on hazelengine.com. It's on Hazel's website. It's been there for like, I don't know, years, but this is like the video version. And so one of the things that you'll find on Hazel's website is that we intend to make Hazel free to use eventually. I want as many people as possible to use Hazel. I also think that obviously, ideally, the technology I'm using would be accessible to anyone. But in the past, when the game engine series was going on, people wanted access to perhaps a more mature version of what we were building. And I personally had to spend so much time building Hazel in its infancy to get it to be a proper game engine. Before we had a team or any volunteers or anything like that, it kind of worked out well, I think, for people who were interested in either obtaining access to Hazel or just supporting the project to pay $10 per month, which, by the way, it stayed that price ever since the beginning, so I think that's nice. It made sense, I think, to target like more of the enthusiast market and essentially make the big version of Hazel be a product that was premium, that required a subscription fee. I mean, I say subscription, but of course you could always just pay for 1 month and then you get access to that version like forever. It stays on your computer. I don't take it away. So don't think of this as like Adobe Creative Cloud or anything like that. Anyway, the point is, I think we are finally in a place where we can see like the light at the end of the tunnel, and that being the fact that we're approaching a more or less stable, I don't know if feature complete is like the right thing to say because it's a game engine. It's never really going to be finished, but at least feature complete and stable in terms of our own definition of what that means. And so now I feel like in the foreseeable future, hopefully soon, we will be ready to release Hazel, kind of officially release Hazel, and it will be free to use. Now, I keep saying free to use, and what I mean by that is because like this first kind of iteration, I guess, of us releasing Hazel for free, the plan is to make it free to use in the sense that we'll provide built binaries of the engine that you could just use like any other application. And then if you want the full source code access, you will still have to become a patron and pay the $10 per month. That allows everyone to try out Hazel and use it, and you can make games with it. Obviously, you don't need the source code to do that. You can still write your C# scripts. You can use it essentially like Unity, except it's actually free. So there's no like royalties if you release something and make money off of it. It's free for you to use, completely free. But then if you want more of like the pro version where you get the full source code access, you can modify it, you can change it, you can add your own stuff at a deeper level, then that's where that subscription fee comes in. And of course, that money goes towards funding further development of Hazel. And again, it'll be one of those things where you can just pay the $10 once, get access to like the full repository, clone it, keep it, and then whenever you want an update to it, or there's like a new feature that comes out that you're interested in and you want the source code to that, you can just obtain it again. But I still think the end goal would be to provide Hazel's source code on GitHub, kind of like a source available model like Unreal Engine, maybe in the capacity of yearly releases. That way we still provide value to the core supporters who are willing to financially support the project, because again, without them it wouldn't really be possible. Now, working towards such a big release is challenging in lots of ways. One of the things that I'm going to be doing that is going to keep me a little bit more disciplined, I guess, with my working on Hazel's schedule, and hopefully also provide content to you, is I'm going to start live streaming on Twitch again. Live streaming myself working on Hazel, of course, is what I mean. But it's cool. We'll also like hang out and stuff. Twitch.tv/the Cherno is my Twitch channel. Link will be in the description below if you want to follow that. I'm going to update the schedule. I'm basically planning initially to do 2 streams per week. So one will be like in evening my time. So it'll hit like, you know, a bunch of you in that, I guess, time zone where that's an appropriate time. And the other time will be during the day, my time. So probably like the morning or something, which will hit another group of people. So hopefully, wherever you are in the world, you'll be able to catch me live. Another thing that I'm trying to do to keep myself a little bit more accountable and also help with time management is by using Akiflow, the sponsor of this video. Akiflow is a super well executed time management and productivity app. They have put a lot of thought into how best to manage one's time. I mean, look at all of this information they have on their site. That alone tells you just how much thought they've put into this. Basically, it all starts with you just writing down everything, just doing a brain dump of all of the stuff that you need to get done into this place called the inbox. You don't have to worry about when you're going to do it yet, just put it in the inbox. There are even global shortcuts on your computer to bring up this Akiflow bar where you can just quickly type something like that in. If it actually does have a time or something, you just put that in as well, enter, done, like, you know, 2 seconds. It's not just useful for like Hazel or for my work, it's also useful for just stuff I need to get done. I've got this project in Akiflow called House, and you can see I'm just putting stuff that just needs to be done around the house. So one of the projects that I'm working on at the moment is I'm trying to sort out like this area I have on my property into a nice lawn. So that's what that task is. And then another real example is recently chopped down a tree. And so I have to keep chipping away at it and cutting it up into firewood.
There's that tree I was talking about.
Trying to juggle all of this stuff that's going on, whether it be like work or personal, I'm really not very good at it. So Akiflow has been an amazing help with that. But then of course, eventually the stuff in your inbox actually needs to be assigned a time in your schedule. Like, when are you planning to actually do this? And for that, you can just switch over into this section and just drag them out. Just drag them into your schedule, visually see where you have those free spots and just chuck them in. I also think that time slots is a fantastic feature that you can use to just like block out an area of time and then later decide what tasks might be achievable within that time slot. And there's also rituals, like you can do these daily rituals that help you actually go through and process these tasks properly. And as you're doing this brain dump and just putting all these things into your inbox, Akiflow's new AI features can actually automatically sort out these tasks into the projects that they belong to, which again is super helpful and saves you time. And because the Akiflow team really care about how they can best help you be productive, they actually have an exclusive one-on-one onboarding call. So once you start using Akiflow, you can literally like have a call with someone who will try and help you best use Akiflow to fit your needs. Give Akiflow a go today and watch it completely transform how you manage your time. Just go to my link in the description below. Huge thank you to Akiflow for sponsoring this video. Anyway, these are my thoughts. I just wanted to give you guys an update on what's going on and what our goals are for Hazel in general, in kind of a chill, relaxed outdoor environment, completely unscripted, just me telling you what's up. So now you know that Hazel is going to be free in the future. But how do we get there? How do we get Hazel to a point where it's good enough for us to release? It ticks all the boxes. What does that look like? Well, to make it easier for you, me, and the team, I put together this little Hazel release roadmap, which is on Hazel's Millernote board. If at any point you want to check out the Millernote board, just go to hazelengine.com/roadmap, or you can just go to hazelengine.com and click this Millernote button in the top right corner. So over here in Millernote, you'll notice this roadmap to release board. And if you double click on that, this is the entire roadmap as of me recording this video. It might change. That's why I recommend you guys go to the website. That's what it's there for. So I've kind of split this up into a few different areas. We've got what look like two paths here, like this top path and this bottom path. The reason why there are two paths is mostly because it just made more sense to lay it out that way, so it would like, you know, fit onto the screen. But also there is some distinction between them, and that is that the top path is basically entirely worked on by me. So Renderer 2025, Basic Multiplayer, Prefabs 2.0, and the GPU particle system are all things that I more or less solely intend to do without like any help from anyone else on the team. Editor 2.0 is currently already being worked on by Emily from the team because she's been working on this like undo redo system, which is great. Animation 2025 is entirely Jim's domain. Asset workflow refinement is probably something I'll do, but I know Jim's also done a lot of work on like the asset thread and background asset loading and stuff like that. And C# API finalization is also something that I think Emily wanted to take a look at, but it's also going to involve the whole team because that's basically going through and refining Hazel's C# scripting API to be pretty solid before the official release, as we want to avoid API breaking changes as much as possible. So yes, these top tasks, or projects really, they're pretty big tasks. That's the kind of stuff that I will be working on, and also most likely live streaming. I mentioned I'm going to get back into streaming on Twitch. I think starting like Monday at this rate, so starting next week. If you go to twitch.tv/thecherno/schedule, I'll try and keep that up to date as much as possible so you can see when streams happen in your time zone. And I'll be starting working on Renderer 2025. I mean, not starting working on it. It's like halfway done, but the streams will be focusing on this initially because that's the first thing that I want to complete, and then we'll be moving on. And once all of this stuff is done, we're going to be in like this QA and polish phase. And then when that's done, I mean, that's it. Like we can release Hazel for free. Everyone will be able to use it. And hopefully that will represent like the first kind of official released stable version of Hazel, which as I mentioned, I'm very excited for. So let's take a deeper look at everything that it's going to take to actually get there. You'll notice that some of these boards actually have links to other boards, and that's because things like Renderer 2025 has actually been here for a while. If you go back to the homepage, it's what we're currently working on. There it is. There's also planned future features. You can double click on any of them and actually see some more detail. So that's like something that is, you know, probably quite helpful if you want to follow along with what we have planned for the future, as well as what's currently happening. Renderer 2025, I'm not going to talk about too much here because live streams are going to happen next week, but also last time I made a video about Hazel, which I will have linked up there, which is like what's happening with Hazel. I basically took like a deep dive onto this Renderer 2025 and explained everything about it. So if you're interested more in that and want to see that in a video, then go watch that video. Basic multiplayer. So multiplayer was introduced for the Genesis 3D project and includes easy to use preliminary real-time multiplayer support. This needs to be cleaned up and finalized. So if you guys remember the Genesis 3D project, which I have not abandoned, by the way, that's still happening. I'll probably work on it maybe a little bit in the coming months. Genesis 3D is kind of like an ongoing game project that actually drives multiplayer development. So whenever I'm working on like networking or multiplayer in Hazel, Genesis is like the test case for that. So they kind of go hand in hand. I haven't worked on this for a little bit. So when I get back to it, I think next month I'll probably make a video talking more about the state of like multiplayer in Hazel. If you guys want to see more content around multiplayer in Genesis 3D, definitely let me know in the comment section below. I might actually show you a little bit about what I mean. So basic multiplayer is something that I really want to get done for Hazel's preliminary release. And the reason why I write basic multiplayer, because it's not kind of like a drag and drop real-time multiplayer where you can just be like, yes, multiplayer equals true or whatever, and then suddenly everything's set up for you to have multiplayer. It's more or less just a way to communicate between like a game server. So Hazel has a server. We have like a server that can run on a Linux machine. If you're kind of out of the loop of the networking and multiplayer progression that we made in Hazel, then check out that video over there. That was probably like the last video I made last year around the Genesis 3D project. So we want to have a server, and then we want to be able to have like, the client, the game client, connect to that server and just communicate with it. That's kind of it. It's basically the burden of multiplayer design and networking design is basically on the actual client, on the user. I say client, but by client, I mean like person making a game using Hazel, not like client server kind of client. Anyway, it's on the game basically to design the multiplayer and how that works. It's not like there's an out of the box solution that ships with Hazel, but rather the tools are there for you to build whatever you want. And the reason why, first of all, it's a lot easier for me to make it that way, but also it lets games obviously do much more specific things with the networking tools rather than having to stick with Hazel's model, because multiplayer is so different, just like games are so different. It would take a lot of effort to design some kind of generic solution for like a real-time networked multiplayer in Hazel. And it's also not something I'm an expert in at all. like this whole multiplayer networking stuff, like I've been learning it as I've been doing this networking and multiplayer implementation inside Hazel. So yes, it's definitely a work in progress. But what I have provided at the moment is basically, if we have a look, this is Genesis 3D, right? There's basically 2 projects here in C#. So this is all of the scripting C# API. This is where we write like all of the behavior and the scripting for our game. And then we can use these scripts like inside Hazel's editor, assign them to entities, stuff like that. So on the net branch, and that's important, if you go back to the roadmap, you'll see that some of these features have branches associated with them. These are both work in progress. By the way, if you go over here, you can see that orange is in progress and gray is not started. So this stuff is not started, but these things are actually in progress at the moment. That's why they have branches. I'm basically working on these simultaneously, by the way. That's why they're both, anyway, I know, 2 huge features simultaneously. That's why they don't get the love that they deserve, you know? Anyway, this is on the net branch, which is accessible, by the way, by patrons who are supporting the project. Hazel projects on that branch basically have 2 different game side C# DLLs. Just a normal, like client side C# DLL, and then a server side one, which only runs on the server. So this lets you script all of like your server behavior. So for example, I think server manager, see, it's still an entity, but it actually contains an instance of a server that you can see you have to create and then hook up events to. So every time we receive data, we'll basically decode it. And you can see this is all happening manually. So it's not like it can automatically decode an entity or anything. It just receives like this raw, I think this is like just a byte array of data. And then it's like up to you to do whatever you need to do. And then similarly, we have like on update where we're actually going to construct this like new buffer of bytes and then just send it like to all clients. And then it's up to the clients on the client side inside C#. So let's see if we can find Genesis client, I think. It's up to them on their data received event to basically decode that data and do something with it. So it's very, very, very flexible in the sense that it's kind of primitive. And all we've facilitated are kind of like these persistent connections. Like we have on client connected and disconnected events, which basically allows the server in this case to manually handle and manage its list of clients as it's doing over here by adding to this player info dictionary. But as you would have seen in that latest Genesis 3D multiplayer video, it works. Like it lets you have real-time multiplayer. It's just not kind of an out-of-the-box automatic solution. I just have an entity and I want it to be synchronized across all clients and the server. You have to write that yourself, but it is C# side. So it is completely game side. You don't need to write any C++ code. It just all kind of works. And not having to write C++ code means that you obviously don't need Hazel's C++ code access. So this would be a feature that you would be able to use if you just had the free binary only release version of Hazel, as is pretty much everything. Like we don't really have any features that are C++ only. The only reason why you would need the C++ code is if you want to add completely new functionality to Hazel or modify the way that it works at its like core, because obviously you can still script a lot on top of it using C# because C# is like a full-on programming language. But if you need access to that stuff that might be C++ side and it maybe isn't exposed to C# or whatever, then that of course is something you're going to need that source code access for. So anyway, this is basically, as I mentioned, what I want to refine. If you guys want to see maybe like a code review of like how the multiplayer works in the first place, like a summary of the project, I think that would probably be helpful for people who are trying to follow along with it, because whilst I do have videos of me working on it, I don't really have like an explanation of how that whole system works. So if you want to see that, definitely let me know in the comment section below, and maybe next month I'll try and make a video surrounding the state of like networking and multiplayer in Hazel. So prefabs 2.0 is like the next thing. I do have this board about it. Basically, our existing prefab system has several limitations which need to be addressed. The 2 biggest issues are bugs. There's like lots of issues with the prefab system where like sometimes it'll lose connection to like the template that is the prefab, you know. They're not super game breaking, but they're very, very annoying to deal with. And then the other actually big issue is that the way the prefabs work in Hazel is you instantiate a prefab. So you have like this prefab, and then here's like this is your level, right? So if you're in the editor, you can just drag it in and then it will just create an entity that is that prefab, like inside your scene hierarchy. But then that's kind of it. If you then open up this prefab and like modify it or something, because you've already created it in the world, it's not going to automatically update. So a use case for this might be like, I don't know, you've made like a tree prefab. And then you want to put like 30 of them around like this area in your scene, in your level. If you do that, you put 30 of those trees around, and then you decide that actually I want to adjust the size or like the texture or whatever, some kind of property of that tree prefab, it's not going to update the ones that are already instantiated, because it's like, well, they've been instantiated. It's like the prefab was just a template for the entity and all of its like components and sub entities and everything else to be instantiated. And once it's done, it's done. It still knows it's a prefab, but it doesn't automatically update. This obviously doesn't affect prefabs that are instantiated during the scene's like playtime. So during runtime, if you like shoot a rocket and then it creates a rocket prefab, because it's creating that dynamically, obviously it will create it from that existing prefab asset. So that's not an issue, but it would be good for them to kind of be direct links to their prefab asset, so that obviously that you could just automatically update all existing prefabs that have already been instantiated without having to like, I don't know, reinstantiate them or something. So that's basically what I want to do for the prefab system. And then the GPU particle system, I mentioned a while ago, you know, I made like this little sandbox project where, let's see if we can get better quality. It's made in Vulkan. It's completely standalone Vulkan IM GUI. And yeah, it's a particle system. So getting this into Hazel, like since it's already basically done, would be good to just kind of get that into Hazel so that we could have a particle system. I think that's useful. If you're interested in these other tasks down here, just jump on the Milanote board and have a read, especially like the animation system. Jim keeps that quite up to date with lots and lots of things. He's a lot more detailed in here than I typically am. But yeah, that's an overview of everything that is going to lead us to release. Obviously, I'm going to be making videos about all these tasks, all these projects as we work on them. But if you are interested in something specific here and you think it would make for some good, like, I don't know, content, and you want more information about it, then let me know in the comment section below and I will try and incorporate like that a little bit more into my devlogs. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, a little bit of a look at Hazel's future. Pretty much every year I reflect on this. I know it's a little bit late, it's like April's May actually. But either way, let me know what your thoughts are. Of course, your feedback is very important. Hazel becoming free to use is not just about getting like more people access to Hazel, it's also about more or less finalizing Hazel as a usable product. So I'm really excited for when that happens, because then I'll be able to hopefully make a lot more content around it, maybe make games myself as well as part of Studio Cherno. And also you guys can use Hazel as well to make games. Maybe we'll have a game jam, like a Hazel game jam. I think that'll be fun. I'm really excited for it in general, because I think it'll just be a point where this thing that I've been building for so long can actually be used like for its intended purpose, and we can be like super creative and actually make things with it. So super excited for that. Thank you all again for watching, and thank you especially to the people who have supported the project on Patreon over all of these years. If you are interested in doing that, by the way, you can go to patreon.com/thecherno, sign up for the $10 per month tier, and then if you go to get.hazelhunter.com, you'll just instantly get access to Hazel. Thank you all once again. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.